Alright, I thought I'd do a few short videos here explaining what I do to traps, start to finish when I get new traps. This is more for guys that don't want to spend the $200+ a dozen on MBs and stuff like that. I'm going to be doing it on a number 2 Victor. The same concepts could be applied to Bridgers, Dukes, Victors, whatever you have. Either brand new or good used traps to turn them into a really good fox and coyote trap. Over the next couple videos, I'm going to go from a basically straight out of the box, unmodified trap to the way I set them up with the chain stake, laminations, and everything else. So this video is going to be pretty much just the basics. What I do to make it fire more consistently, pan modifications, the dog, stuff like that. Minor stuff that makes a big difference as far as I'm concerned. So the first thing I'm going to do is change out the pan bolt, because this pan has a lot of slop in it right now, and that is because the hole in the shank is a lot bigger than what the pan bolt is, so it gives it a lot of slop. You want that hole just to be the same size as the bolt so there's no slop in there. So if I can find my tools. You have to bear with me. I've been in the middle of building a trapping room, so my tools are scattered all over the place. Sometimes instead of trying to find a wrench, it's easier just to go with a pair of vice grips. So take your pan bolt out, and it's going to be hard to see in the video, but that's what's causing your slop. In fact, I think it's in the pan post itself is where the slop is at. So get that bolt out, and then I just throw it in the trash. I don't save them. And get, I think they're number 10 brass bolts and nuts. You can get them from F&T or any of the trap and supply houses. They sell a number 14 drill bit with it. I tried it and it was a little bit too tight to get the bolt in, so I found a 3/16 drill bit works just as good as anything. Drill out your pan, your pan post. And drill out the hole in your pan shank. And then what I do, some guys use 2 washers, I just use 1. Get in here, and I pry the pan posts apart just a little bit to give a little extra room. Because what I'll do is I'll take the washer that comes with the bolts and stick it between one side of the pan shank and the pan mounting posts. So it'll sort of go in there like that. And by putting that washer in there, what it does is it spreads the pan posts apart a little bit more and creates more even pressure on the pan shank, which will give more consistent pan tension. Because for fox and coyote, I know strictly coyote guys like to run anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds, sometimes maybe even a little bit heavier. I'm running the mixed species line. Anything that comes across that trap I want to get caught, other than of course a rabbit or a squirrel, I usually run between 2.5 and 3.5 pounds, which is enough to pick up a fox and still heavy enough to get a good pad catch on a coyote. So right there's no slop to the pan. It's still a little bit loose. And you'll know by feel after you do this enough times about where your tension should be to get you the pan tension you want. And now there's no slop in that at all. It's all right where it should be. Next thing I'm going to do is take this dog, and you can either file them square off. What I do is I'll actually file it at an angle about like that and make a point on the end of the dog to give it a nice crisp fire. Right now it's actually filed the opposite direction, and sometimes I'll run night latch on traps. This time I'm not going to. Depends on my mood whether I'm running the night latch, running it down to a hair trigger, or if I'm just leaving it as it is and I just look at the pan and creep it down to a hair trigger. This one I'm going to leave alone, but if you wanted the night latch, you take the pan post off and put it in the vise. Is a lot easier. And get in there and file just a little step in the pan, and that'll give an audible click when your dog drops into that. So when you're setting at night, you know when you're at pan level. In fact, here's a number 3 bridger that I have night latched. It's kind of hard to see, but right in there there's a little step, and what that'll do is, right now the pan's too high. Once you pull it down into that step, it makes an audible click. And right now that trap is on a hair trigger and the pan is sitting nice and flat. So I know when that clicks, that's right where the pan needs to be, on a hair trigger. Pan tension's right, pan's laying nice and flat. It's ready to go in the ground. But like I said, I'm not going to do that to this trap. The only thing I'm going to do is right here on the end of the pan notch is square it up so it's a nice square edge for a crisp fire. And it doesn't take much, just a few strokes of the file to square that up. And there, it's nice and square. And then I'll clamp it in the vise. And again, I'm filing the dog at about that angle. And it won't take too much. Well, this one will, because it was filed at the wrong angle to begin with. One thing you don't want to do is go too far and make your dog too short. So get it close and keep checking it. Alright. It'll focus. Now that dog's filed at an angle about like that, so it gives a nice crisp fire. The only last thing to do with the file is just take it on the back side of the dog where I was filing and take the burrs off of it so it's nice and smooth. And then lastly, you want to check for pan tension and also your pan level. I check pan level first and then go through and set my tensions. Now the pan's sitting high. If I pull it down to a hair trigger, it's still sitting a bit higher than what I like. One thing I forgot to do that's going to help correct that is this dog has a lot of forward and backward slop in it. Just take a pair of channel locks and squeeze that dog eye closed to where it doesn't bind, but takes up the slack. Now see, I got two, it had a little bit of binding. You work it back and forth, just a little bit of catching is fine. It'll blow right through that. but now there's no slop in that dog. Now we'll check it again. And again, when this strap's on hair trigger is when I want it to sit perfectly flat. You see there? But just by taking that up, I can't get the dog down to get it set with the pan the whole way down. So there's at full engagement. So I could file it to a hair trigger at that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move it out simply because I need to make sure I have enough room in here for whenever I go to do jaw laminations on the trap. This bugger might be. There we go. So what I do, this is about the only specialty tool I have for working on traps. It's for adjusting your pan height. It has a slot in it and a groove to go down over and straddle the dog, and you bend it in or out depending on if your pan's too high or too low. So our pan would be too low right now. Just take that and bend it out just a little bit, and you can sort of eyeball it as you're going. Check that. Full engagement, pans up, pull it down to a hair trigger, and it's sitting, now it's livable. That's nice and flat as far as I'm concerned. So we'll go ahead and check pan tension while we're at it. I use the Sullivan's tool. You got your lines for 1, 2, 3, 4, and bottomed out is 5 pounds. Again, I'm looking for between 2.5 and 3.5 pounds on these straps. They're just over 1 pound, way too light for what I'm doing. So we have to tighten that bolt down a little bit tighter. Still not enough. And once you tighten it down, work the pan back and forth because it will loosen it up. Don't just tighten it down and go checking tension because it will get lighter. I work the pan back and forth quite a bit before I pull another tension reading on it. Down the hair. 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds. Way too high. Once you get to this point, it can be a little bit finicky at times, but once you get it set, you got it set. So I'll back that off just a touch. That should be close there. Two and a half, almost 3 pounds. That's perfect. That's right where I want it. So that's what I do with the pan and the dog to make it fire more consistently, more reliably. Next couple videos, I'm going to go over what I do as far as jaw additions, laminating, bubble tipping the jaws, excuse me, welding to reinforce with a base plate that I make. Upgrading the chain with swivels. So we'll go over those in the next couple videos. Thanks.